Good afternoon, Mackenzie Kane here, coming to you from Sticks Billiards Hall here in Tampa Bay, Florida. And I have the privilege of being joined here by the legendary pool player, Black Widow herself, Jeanette Lee. Jeanette, thank you
Thank
for
you.
just taking the time to sit down with me today.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for everything that you do and following your podcast and you just have a lot of great. I think just making us more whole in the way that we go through life. I think that you're very talented, so I'm very honored to be part of this.
I really appreciate that. And this is actually our second time seeing each other face to face. You spoke at the Wise Tampa Bay event just a few months ago,
Yeah.
and then you followed up with some pretty educational pool tips that I'd like to tell you have helped me get a couple of wins in some pub
All right,
settings.
nice. That's
But
great.
how have you been since then?
I think right now, just having stage 4 ovarian cancer a few years ago, I'm cancer free today, by the way, so that's great news.
Huge, fantastic.
But I will say that it's been a struggle. I've always been fit, I've always worked out, and my muscles really atrophied, and just kind of dealing with all that. So I'm still kind of in the state where I don't want to just survive. I want to strive. I want to inspire. I'm sorry. I want to thrive and inspire, and just be more active, more current in when I'm dealing with my children. Because a lot of it, I was very tired. I get fatigued very easily, but I feel great. I'm very thankful.
I'm really glad to hear that, and it's so great seeing you again and seeing that big smile on your face that you always have. It's truly always a blessing.
Thank you.
So, for anyone unfamiliar with your story, you've won every major title there is in pool.
Right.
Brought home a gold medal in the World Games, former world number one.
Yeah.
But before all that started, you were just a kid growing up in New York. So, can you just take me through what that life was like growing up?
So I talk about this in my book, The Black Widow, a memoir, about growing up in Brooklyn in a black neighborhood, being called chink and ching chong chaliwang and all these different things, and having to overcome that. I had a sister who, although I was bright and in all the gifted classes, she was valedictorian. And I really feel like I felt like I just never fit in anywhere, but I was constantly trying to. I was trying to fit in. I mean, these girls were so full figured by the time they were 9, and I was, just scrawny kid. And I remember, putting socks in my bra that I stole from my mom and wearing thermal underwear to fill up my pants because my legs were so thin compared to the other girls that were around me. And when I found pool, it was the first time in my life that I just stopped caring what people thought. I was so into it. I was going to be the best. And why can't I get this shot down? Why is it taking so long? I was so into that. And I think that it gave me a lot of freedom. I didn't realize how much I wanted to fit in, how much I wanted a good friend, which I didn't get until I was like 18, right around the time that I found pool. And then with the Black Widow nickname, which I hated at the beginning, but it gave me permission to be aggressive and to be as feminine as I wanted to be. Like I think a lot of people they think in order to be really great, a sharp businesswoman, an incredible athlete, they kind of have to be a little bit manly. I could be wrong, but it just feels like there's a lot of them that feels like they have to be more like them when I celebrate the fact that I'm a woman. And I love being someone that can be proud of who she is and being smart and just going for it and being unapologetic about it. And that nickname, people were expecting it anyway, so why not? And it's not who I am all the time. Like off the table, I'm very different. I am more insecure, and I am much more, I don't know, loving, affectionate, whatever you want to call it. And on the pool table, it's all about just breaking balls and doing your job and being very competitive. And I love it. I loved it. I miss it. I hope that someday I can do it again, even though everyone's like, Jeanette, you have nothing left to prove. Just enjoy this next phase in your life, new chapter, which for me, hopefully, is inspiring more people with connecting with the fact that they're not alone, that I've gone through so many things, I still am, and you may also, but you're not as alone as you think. And a lot of it, the courage and the strength, is not in the absence of fear or doubt, it's in the face of it. And that we can lean on each other.
What was it like just, walking into those pool halls, 18 years old in New York, and just what were the looks you were getting as being one of the only women in that hall?
That's a really great point. Back then, there were almost there were some women that played, but most of the time they would rather watch their friends, watch their boyfriend or be around, but they didn't want to play. And then the few times I did find women that played, I was trying to get, there was one point that the room owner, Greg Hunt of Amsterdam Billiard Club, he would always sponsor these different tournaments. I was getting good enough to compete and play in local events, and I said, "Why don't you have a big?" We had little weekly tournaments where it's $5 or $10 entry fee, and you might win 200 or 300. But he would have big tournaments where you could win 2,000, 5,000, and I'm like, "Why can't you put that money towards the women?" And he said, "Jeanette, if you can get 16 women to compete, I'll add $1,000 to a women's tournament." I was so excited. I was like, yes. And I loved the fact that I was being proactive and wanting to bring more opportunities to women. And to get him to agree to that, I went to every pool room that I knew of in New York for a period of 8 weeks. I couldn't get 8. I couldn't. I just could not. They were always, I'm talking about the girls that I saw them playing, and they were good enough, but they were like, nope, that's not for me. I'd much rather just watch my boyfriend play or something like that. And today, there's so many more women playing. So that's something to celebrate.
What was that moment when you realized you started breaking those balls? Wow, I'm pretty good at this. When did you realize this was something you wanted to pursue professionally?
I was very hard on myself. I tend to be. And I don't know that there was a point that I went, "Wow, I'm good. This is awesome." I think it was constantly, "Why am I so bad? Why is it taking me so long? I must just have no talent at all." And of course, after you're number one, then everyone says, "Oh, you must have had so much natural talent." But it really was about the hard work. I mean, I played more than anybody I knew. I asked a lot of questions. Anytime I couldn't be on the table, I was buying AccuStats tapes, which are videotape, well, yeah, VHS tapes of, I'm aging myself here, VHS of the top men playing pro events. I got to be careful. So I learned so much watching that, because locally there were still a lot of great players, but I was always playing. I wasn't really studying as much. But I learned a lot from that, and it prepared me for the Women's Pro Tour, because when I got there, even though I respected the women, I could see that they could play, I wasn't afraid. I was nervous. You get nervous. You're supposed to get nervous when you're competing because it means that it matters to you. But you could either get crushed by that pressure, or you could think of it more like I tell the amateurs that ask me, I'm like, just think of it more like, rather than it being panic, think of it more like an adrenaline rush. Where you go, "Oh yeah, this is what it's all about. This is what I worked so hard for this opportunity. I'm going to get mine. This is awesome." Versus amateurs that tend to be like, "Oh my God, I can't breathe. Look at my hands. I can't breathe. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this." And, they get so wrapped up in that. And I'm saying, think about nerves as armor that you put on before battle. It's just part of the deal. You put yourself, by working hard, you put yourself in a position to win a championship. But you have to be just willing to stay present and take all that negativity and focus off of your environment and how nervous you are, and think, okay, I've prepared for this. I put myself here. I deserve to win just as much as anyone else. I'm just going to go for it. And that's kind of a mantra that you have to keep doing, because the nerves, they can crush you. They can suffocate you.
You know, when you were just making that jump into your teenage years, that 12, 13 age jump, you sort of found out you had scoliosis, and I'm curious what happened after that.
So one day, as I was growing up, I was very much like a tomboy. I loved to run, I loved to play. And one day when I was about 12, my mom took us all to Long Island Beach because we lived in Bayside, Queens at that point. And it had been years since my mom saw me without clothing, right? Because I was 12, so I was bathing and showering myself. And I had taken off my shirt and I was getting ready to run into the water just like with my sister Doris. And she went, "Wait, come back." And then my mom was a nurse, recovery room nurse for 45 years. And she's like, "Something's wrong." And she just packed it up. And over the next few days, went to the doctor. And the doctor said, "Your back is crooked. We're going to fix it. We're going to straighten it out." And that was all the information I got. I didn't know anything about support groups or what was going to happen, which was them breaking down my whole spine. It's shaped like an S. It was 58 and 56 degrees crooked. And they said that I'm like, "Well, but I'm fine. I feel fine." And he said, "But you won't. It will continue to get worse. So we need to take care of it." And after that, I just remember waking up in so much pain. And then they had to give me one of those big casts over my whole body, which eventually turned into plastic braces. One in the front, they were like plates on the front and back, and there were metal rings with Velcro straps that you had to tighten in order for it to, constantly. It had to be tight, and you're hot and itchy. And I was in middle school. And you know how kids are in middle school.
Kids are mean.
And it was just a really, really tough time for me. On top of, just my experience of not fitting in growing up. And then even in something I excelled, which was academics, still wasn't good enough. And it really wasn't pressure from my mom. It was more me looking around and feeling like there's no one like me, And I really feel like before I found pool, there was no reason to wake up in the morning for me. I was not extremely happy. I didn't have any close friends that I connected with. And finding pool was really, for me, the beginning of finding my joy, So it was really a great thing that happened because that scoliosis, that surgery, it just knocked out anything I had left in terms of self-confidence. And I didn't have anyone to talk to. It wasn't the kind of thing. And my mom and I always had that love, still do, that unconditional love. But it was very hard to gain her understanding and vice versa. Me to understand where she was coming from. And pool, well, she definitely didn't understand pool. She was not, yeah, she was like, "What are you doing? You're spending all hours of the night with guys in pool rooms in the middle of the night." And I was like, "You don't understand. I'm going to be number one." You know?
And you were.
Eventually, yeah. And she was very proud. And she's always given me, I give her so much credit, but she gives it right back. She's like, "Jeanette, you basically made it and financially supported yourself and God's not by yourself without, like, they didn't pay for my pool time or my jobs or my gas money. It was everything. I had to work. And then as I got better in pool and was making more prize money, then I could quit these jobs." But it was a lot at the time.
What was sort of going through your mind during those early days in the pool halls
Yeah.
when you were, working through some of the, internal insecurities, and what was it that you were looking to gain from those 20-hour nights in the halls?
Yeah, I was thinking about when I first walked into that room, it was primarily men. And if you stayed longer, you started to see who the regulars were. And they were all basically men just waiting for fish to walk in that they could hustle. And I wasn't good enough to be trying to gamble with these people, nor did I have the money. But it was just such easy money because the men were constantly underestimating me. Even when I was bad, they still thought I was worse than whatever, because there's always handicaps. You can make handicaps when you're gambling. In pool, they might win. Maybe they can take a couple extra balls, stripes or solids off the table, or whatever the handicaps are. And it just became so easy, and it went from me feeling like I didn't fit in and I wouldn't be good enough. There were so many good players, to realizing that me being a woman actually could be a benefit, because you were constant. When I played a man, I was playing them, I was playing the game. But when the men were playing me, they were more like checking me out or analyzing just how good or bad they were so into the uniqueness of me. You know what I mean? Rather than their games. So they never played even up to, there were rarely men that I competed with or gambled with where they played their real game against me. Almost always their game dropped a little bit. Not only because you tend to rise to the level of your competition, but you also can take them for granted. And that happened often enough that I could quit my jobs.
Well, when was that first time when you felt the people you were playing against, they were putting up their best because they respected your game?
I would say probably after I became number one and my name got out, where people started to follow, because then they knew going in, this is a world champion. And they would still see me play and miss and still think they could beat me. But what they didn't, I think they didn't take into consideration, is it's not just your game. It's how are you as a competitor. There's a lot of people that I can watch them play and they're really at a really good level. Then they get into a tournament and that pressure, it gets to them. Whereas for me, and I would say I'm lucky with this, I tended to rise under the level of the pressure. That's not saying I didn't miss under pressure or things like that, but I would get so hungry I could taste their blood. It was like, yeah, and I would just make this one ball, Jeanette. There was just so much commitment to playing my best pool, and I respected my opponents, no matter what their level, because I know how people can play good and bad under pressure. And so I was pretty lucky that I've always tended to be better under pressure. I still felt it. I tell people I still feel it because I'm a passionate person. So, you get into these tournaments and the title is bigger, the prize money is bigger, and I just get all my goosies start popping out, and yeah, I love it. It's my world.
You just said it. You could taste their blood. It's the essence of that Black Widow name. But I'm curious, what do you think, or what does Black Widow mean to you today? You said initially you didn't really like the name, but it sort of evolved since then.
So when I started, I was very self-conscious because of the way that I looked when I was playing pool. It's not something that I created, it was just what was, but because I was getting more known, people were taking a lot of pictures and I was seeing the way my face looks. You've seen it. It fits perfectly with the Black Widow, but for me, I was 19, 20 at this point, 21. I wanted to be liked. I wanted friends. I wanted to fit in. And the Black Widow nickname was not welcoming. It was not welcomed, at least on the women's side of things. And what it means to me, I think I want women to feel like they're enough and they don't need to be like a man in order to be as powerful, as strong, as fit, as successful as any man. I think that at the beginning, I didn't like it because I felt like it would make more people hate me. But what I learned over time, just by the response of the audience, the viewers, right, my fans, they loved the nickname, and I was confused by that. But they were like, I just love how you get out there and you're in your stilettos and your leather, which, by the way, the first 5 years that I competed, I never owned anything leather. But the nickname, it was like people would just say in her leather and lace, even though I hate lace and I don't wear leather. Didn't at the time, couldn't afford it. But it just gives me, it's like a celebration because the Black Widow nickname has not become the name, has not become a persona that's primarily hated. primarily loved and welcomed. And so it made me feel okay with just being me, and that the Black Widow that was assigned to me on my at a competitive side, but off the table you can still be warm and loving, inspiring, caring, generous. And so that's what I became comfortable with, that it was okay to be both. You know what I mean? You don't have to be the Black Widow all the time. It's appropriate for competition. But it's something that now I'm very thankful. I know I keep saying that, but that's really kind of where my mind is at. I feel like I got so lucky that Gabe Vigorito of Howard Beach Billiard Club made fun of me one night and said, "You know what you remind me of? You remind me of the Black Widow." And I'm like, why? And he said, "Because you're so sweet off the table, you just don't expect it. And then when you get on the table, you lure your opponents to the table and then you eat them alive." And I was like, whatever, because he's a friend. He was the room owner of the club that I practiced at a lot. And so I didn't pay it any mind, but then the nickname just grew. I think it helped me in many ways.
It grew so much to the point you wanted to make it the title of your book too. I
Yes.
What was the inspiration behind, writing this memoir?
I had just gotten the news of that I had stage 4 ovarian cancer, and ESPN had just signed a contract to make my story part of their 30 for 30 documentary series, and Jeanette Lee Versus, which had just come out. And during that time, I was doing chemo, and I was off a lot of my treatments, which were autoimmune diseases because of the cancer. And so I was I was just dealing with a lot. But even though I dug in and I was like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving my daughters without a mom. That was 99, if not 100% of all that was on my mind. The importance of staying alive so that my children are not left without a mom. It's not about me. It wasn't for me at all. I'm not afraid to die. I know that I'm saved. I'm a Christian, and I've just had a full life. I've traveled all over the world. I've met so many people, so I'm okay to say goodbye, but not okay with my children growing up without a mom, without their mom. And so that's all that I thought about during that time. But there's still this thing that knows that, well, it's not all up to you, and it might not work out. And how do you prepare for that? And I just had a lot of that on my mind. And so getting the opportunity to tell my story, to share not just my past, it wasn't meant to be a chronological portrayal of all the things that have happened in my life, but it was about some of the things that I had to overcome and deal with, but also the lessons learned. I wanted this book to not just be, oh, look at me and look at all of the things I accomplished. I wanted it to be more like, you're not alone. I've been through things too, and we can get through this. And just hang on, hold tight. And on those days that you can't get out of bed, just put one foot on the ground after another and be very proud of yourself. Even if that means just getting up and going to the kitchen. It's important for me to make people realize that they do have a choice. They do have some say in their future. And you can't help all the things that happen to you, but how you respond to things, the way you choose to look at things and look at yourself. I think it takes so much courage to just fight all those demons when everything in your body and mind is telling you to stay in bed and you get out of bed. I'm like, you're way stronger and more courageous than you think. Even though it's such a little thing, it's an important thing where, the people that don't have those struggles, it's hard for them to ever get the respect that you will get from someone that has had to really struggle and go through things, and you see them on the other side. You look at that versus someone that had everything kind of handed to them, things that came easy. And so the people that are really struggling, they feel like a victim, but they can also be an inspiration. And it's really just the way that you look at it, because either way, they found a way to survive. You know what I mean? And they went through those things, but they should be proud of themselves and speak out, because there's other people that feel very alone.
Was there a chapter or even just a story in the book that you felt was hard to share, that you were kind of on the fence about, I don't know if I really want to bring this part of me out into the open yet, but deep down you knew that sharing this information could help someone maybe going through the same thing?
Absolutely. There were things that I had to really think about, because I'm not a malicious person, and there's a lot of people that hurt me, but I wasn't wanting to use this as an opportunity to bash people. But there were realities. When I went to the women's tour, I was not welcomed. I was not treated the way I think people deserve to be treated. And, just with my family, they were not initially supportive. There's a truth in that, but I don't blame my mom for not supporting it. I was like a 18-year-old kid out all hours of the night playing pool, and why should she think this is a career? Why would she think that this is something safe and good for her daughter? So I don't blame them, but it was like, should I say that? Should I not mention it? But I really wanted it to be authentic and real, and I wanted to share some of the things, because I know I'm not the only one, who had a mom that wasn't supportive of whatever dream they had, or going into a new job or office or wherever and not fitting in, and for people looking at you. And it was, for the women's tour, it was because I was getting so much attention and they didn't feel that I had paid my dues. And that I was only getting the attention and was only number one because I was pretty, and because I was using sex to gain my fan base. And I'm like, no, that's what you think when a woman is being very feminine and takes care of herself and wants to put her best thing forward. Then they say, oh, she's selling sex, when actually she's just being authentic to her.
For the people looking to get their hands on this book, what's the best place for them to turn to?
www.blackwidowstrong.com. So it's originally Carom Sports, but a lot of people can't. It's CAROM, like Mary, sports.com. But you can also go to blackwidowstrong.com, which goes to the same thing. You can get my memoir, but you can also get autographed cue balls and autographed books also. So you can get my book pretty much at any bookstore, or Amazon or triumphbooks.com or any of those places. But if you want my merch and if you want an autographed copy, you can go to blackwidowstrong.com.
Fantastic. And, it just came out a few weeks ago, days ago even.
Yeah.
I got my copy in the mail just before I came here, actually.
Awesome.
But I just want to know, how proud are you of what you've been able to put out there, and the story you've been able to tell, and how inspiring, or how you've been able to inspire young girls just looking to find their place in just the world of sports?
I'm so thankful to Triumph Books for being willing to sign me to do my book. But I was very stressed out, because at the time I was in the middle of chemo and I was dealing with chemo fog and medications, and so my thinking wasn't that great. So I was worried, like, what kind of book am I going to put out there? So fortunately, they were able to they gave me a handful of authors, writers to pick, and I picked Dana Benbow. It was important to me that she be a woman, but she was also from India and very talented, and she just made it easy. So I did a lot of talking, sharing of the stories, but putting it in the right order and knowing where to go, that was scary. So they made it very easy for me, and I'm very proud of it, because I think it does what I set out to do. It told my story while also trying to be as inspirational as possible, which was important to me.
You talked a little bit earlier about the ESPN 30 for 30 segment, Jeanette Lee versus.
Yes.
And you also mentioned that you had signed that contract to have that episode before you found out about the cancer. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was just so fortunate. I mean, think about all the sports that exist. And ESPN, for their 30th anniversary, started making these 30 for 30 series, 30 documentaries for their 30th anniversary. And it was so well received that they continued to do documentaries here and there. But that they chose pool, it wasn't just me, but just to include my sport, this teeny tiny sport. You know what I mean? I mean, everybody plays pool. Everyone has played pool. But as a professional sport, it's very, very small. And so just the fact that they included the sport made me very proud. But also, it was important for me. I mean, when you watch the movie, you can see it on ESPN Plus. There's plenty of filming of me just getting out of bed. My hair's all messed up and I'm all drugged up, and I'm telling my daughters to have a good day of school, and found out it was Saturday, and it was just like all these things that happened during that filming. But it was the real me, the good and the bad, and I don't know what else to say about it except that I'm very proud. I'm very proud of this book. There's a lot that you can't include in a movie, and I didn't get to direct the movie. So I really didn't know until they actually showed it to me before it aired, and I loved it. But it didn't include so much. There was so much missed. And with the book, it was up to me. You know what I mean? I got to share what I wanted to share
You got
in
to
the
tell
way
your
that
story.
I wanted to. Yeah.
Now, I guess the last question I have for you before I go, for the people watching who, haven't gotten into pool yet, who haven't fallen in love with the game or are struggling to reach that next level, what's your best pool tip on how to, hone the craft?
Well, when it comes to pool, I would say the number one, like the first bit of advice that I would give to anyone wanting to get better is get a professional pool lesson and get your fundamentals right. Because a lot of times it's our setup, very much like golf, the way that you stand and, don't drop your shoulders and make sure you do this or that. And so with pool, it's making sure that you're lined up well and to not get so defeated if you don't play your best pool every time. You just have to know that you're going to miss. And it's not about learning how to make the fancy shots. It's about being able to control your mind and your mindset, the way that you think, to be inclusive of all the mistakes and errors and choking and missing whatever it is, and never giving up. Just always being the hand that lifts you up instead of the one that's like, oh my God, that was so stupid. I can't. I see people just beating themselves up so badly when it comes to competition, and they don't realize just how much it handicaps them, how much they're sabotaging themselves. So I would say positive mindset is critical to improving as fast as you can, and having good fundamentals and seeing it as much value. Something I also notice in competition, a lot of people want to play people that are better than them because they think that is going to make them rise, which is true. You're learning from them, you have the pressure, and they're going to punish you for your mistakes. So in many ways, that's the best thing for you. But I have learned to find a lot of value in playing people that are weaker than me if I want to be a competitor, because there's going to be a lot of times you're playing in a tournament, and there's going to be players that are better than you and people that are weaker than you. But a lot of times we will lose to players that aren't at our skill level because we have allowed ourselves to drop to their level, because we're not giving them enough respect or the sport enough respect. And what I tell people is, when you know you're playing someone weaker than you, let's say in a race to 7 games, if you had to say, where do you think you're at with this opponent? You might think, well, I think in a race to 7, I don't think she can get to 3. To win 3 games against me in a race to 7 without me beating her. And I would say, have that in your mind. Okay, she shouldn't get to 3. Now crush her. Crush her. And people are always shocked and laugh. And I said, there's a lot of benefit to building a habit of crushing the people you're supposed to crush. Not just beating them. Not just, in order for you to get to 7 without her getting to 3, you have to be ready to play your best pool. Play at the level you're supposed to play. And instead, they notice, it's almost like they think that just because they're that much weaker, they should just, by all rights, without making the effort, just keep winning. No, you have to do your job to keep winning. But you also have to yeah, just learn to protect and control your mindset from all these negative things, whether it's from people on the outside or whether if it's from your own insecurities. You know what I mean? You have all these doubts, but do not take for granted the opportunity to, just really beat the players that you're supposed to beat. Having that kind of thinking, whether it's in sports or work or life or whatever it is, respect the things that you're dealing with. But if you're supposed to take care of it, work hard. Take your time, work hard, respect your opponent, respect the game, and cross your fingers and pray.
There's always going to be a little bit of luck involved, right?
Yeah, there is. But I'll tell you, you're opening. A lot of times you have more opportunities than you think. You know what I mean? It's not just from the tough situations; it's from the everyday situations.
Well, Jeanette, I want to say thank you so much for just taking the time to sit down with me. This was truly inspiring, and I can't wait to finish the rest of your book. And I really hope everyone gets the chance to grab a copy.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for finding enough value to take
gosh,
this time with me. I'm
absolutely.
so glad that we were able to do this. So thank you.
And
Get your book,
get your book,
The Black
and,
Widow, a memoir.
And I will have to start getting some pool lessons.
Yes, that we
Get
can
my
arrange.
fundamentals
You have
down,
to
yep.
Come back. You're gonna have to come back to Tampa often.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck to you.